Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2023 DocLands Documentary Film Festival. My name is Michelle Svenson, and I have the extraordinary pleasure to be part of a wonderful programming team and staff at the California Film Institute. Before we begin, I would like to offer some acknowledgments for the tribes whose land we stand on today. The California Film Institute sits on the traditional, ancestral, and contemporary homelands of the Coast Miwok, the Pomo, and the Wapo people, which also include the Southern Pomo and the Graton Rancheria tribes. DocLands is proud to have an outstanding support team from community partners, sponsors, members, and donors. And it's because of you and our patrons that all of this is possible, so thank you. I think everybody here got some red and white ballots. Okay, don't forget to vote for your favorite film at this year's festival. You just tear off the notch for your rating, and after the screening, there'll be volunteers that'll be collecting your votes. Tonight we have a very special film and a very special guest that came here for the film. And Still I Sing is a reminder that while we fight our battles at home, in politics and in media, that there's still those out there that are fighting to have their voices heard. The voices in tonight's film are strong women's voices. And despite consistent suppression and threats, they are loud and persistent. Director Fazila Amiri amplifies these voices, reminding us what's worth fighting for. I'm going to have her come up in a second and give a brief intro to the film. But before I do that, I want to remind everybody to please turn off your phone ringers. And then don't forget to stick around afterwards for Q&A.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction. Thank you everyone for coming, making time to watch this film at this very urgent times. I'm really blessed and really honored and deeply, deeply happy to have our Bay Area premiere at DocLands this year. So I'm also very happy that our community members are here, some of those who I've worked in Afghanistan with on this film. And my crew couldn't be here, but I was very honored to preserve these women's brave stories and their resistance to the arts and the power of their voice. And I also like to acknowledge that as we are watching this film today, just a reminder that Taliban are still systematically erasing women's visibility from public life and from education and work. And as democracy living in the West, we are in a privileged place to amplify their voices, raise awareness, and provide them with material and moral support. So thank you for your solidarity, for coming out to watch this film. We will have more conversation after the film. Thank you.
What a powerful story. Well, we are very lucky, though, to have the director, Fazila Amiri, here to answer some questions.
Thank you.
Fazila is an Afghan-Canadian writer and director based in Toronto. And Still I Sing is her first feature documentary, which premiered at Hot Docs Canadian International Documentary Festival, screened at the 2022 Sheffield Doc Fest, Sydney Film Festival, and Doc Edge Festival, where it won the Fearless Award in Best Festival category. Since we only have about 20 minutes, I'll only ask a couple questions because I really want to leave the audience most of the questions. Fazila, I really can't even imagine what it must have been like to film this story. And so can you tell us, for you, how is it to have gone there, to have made the film? Surely when you started, didn't know that the Taliban would be taking over. So can you tell us, one, when did you know you were going to tell this particular story? And also, how was it for you as in the journey as a filmmaker and filming there during this time?
Yeah, I guess this project started for me over probably a decade now. After I graduated from university, I kept traveling back home to sort of reconnect with my families, revisit the culture that I left behind when Taliban first took power in 1996. So I had a lot of dark memories of that time, and I wanted to go back and sort of see this, what's happening in a post-Taliban society. So when I went back, one thing that inspired me was seeing women's visibility in public spaces, at workforce, in the music and culture sector. And one of those role models were Aryana Sayeed and other brave women singers and artists and politicians. So I didn't know if I was intentionally wanted to make a music documentary, but I wanted to preserve that history that was shaping place in the country. So that's how my journey began, with making a short film about this very young girl in eastern province of Afghanistan who was singing in a radio station, but she didn't show her face. So when I made that short film, Basirjan Hamidi is one of my very good friend who took me to the eastern province, and we did a short film there, and her sister was running the radio station in a very Taliban-controlled province, and it was really inspiring to see that. So when I made that short film, it did well, and it was received well, and then I decided to make a feature-length film. So I guess emotionally for me, I wasn't thinking about politics and war so much. It was happening in the background, but my main focus was to show the courageous voices of Afghan women regaining their, strengths and power, and rebelling against the taboos, and showcasing their talents in this TV show, inspired by their mentor. And so that was the main message of the film, that I wanted to preserve and tell the world that this side of Afghanistan is, cultural, it's beautiful, people want to have a normal life. But when I started shooting, from 2018 onwards, the United States was signing a peace deal with the Taliban, which I don't think it was just a peace deal. It was not a process. It was just an event it was a PR event for the Taliban. And they drew very rapidly, and that led to the collapse. So as we were filming, it was basically the political backdrop of that story, and women were talking about it, they were concerned about it. So that's why we were just there to document what happened. I guess emotionally, I still haven't processed. I still don't believe that we lost our country to a group of terrorist extremists, but we are here to, resist and raise our voices and pressure, I guess, the international community to do more. Yeah.
I noticed at the end that she was filming herself. So have you been able to go back and film yourself, or are you mainly reliant on them telling their stories through this way now?
So last time I was in Afghanistan was a month before what happened, before the withdrawal. We were planning Aryana's concert, her dream concert in Ghazi Stadium. She wanted to have a major concert there before, that was her dream, and that we wanted the film to end on a hopeful note. So we came back to Canada, and we were kind of editing a rough cut, and we were planning to go back on a shoot, and she was in Kabul at that time. So we didn't know that things will drastically change. So within a span of 1 week, it was shocking for all of us, and my team were there. So I had my camera people, sound people there, so they were filming some stuff, but obviously, since these singers were high-profile singers, we couldn't be around them, not expose their security. We were worried about their safety, and once we safely evacuated them from the country, then we kind of re-strategized what it means to them, and if they want to, talk about what happened. And they were very excited, they were very passionate to include what happened, the traumas they saw, and it became part of the film. And I stopped sending it to festivals, because I was about to send a rough cut I was like, this is not a good time, let me just take a break, because it's not about the film anymore, it's about people's safety.
Right.
Yeah. And she was filming that herself, because she was actively posting on her YouTube channel, vlogging videos that, I'm stuck here. I don't know what's going to happen to me, but, I just want to tell the world that this is what's happening and I'm stuck here. So she was there for like almost 3 months. We kept her safe in a safe house with a trusted friend. And after that, she was evacuated with a group of activists to Abu Dhabi refugee camp, where she stayed there for about 9 months. And now she's in Germany. And they all have seen the film. I brought them to festivals, and they still give concerts and sing. And, but it's sad at the same time to lose all that potential from the country.
Right.
Yeah.
Any questions? Yes.
I have so many questions. Wait. That was spectacular. That was such a spectacular film. Thank you. So, really kind of 2 questions really quick. What about the other 2 women, right? And where do you think there will be a distributor that pick this up? Do you any ideas? And how did you get the funding to do all of that?
3 questions.
Thank you. So the other two girls, Zahra Ilham, like we see in the film, she went to Pakistan to her family. Her family supported her, so she had a support system in her life. Whereas Siddiqa, her family was after her during that time. They wanted her to get married and quit music. So that's why we kept her in a safe house, because we wanted her to do better, get out of that situation. So Zahra went to her family in Pakistan. She was there for a bit. Now she's in Australia, in Sydney, In Melbourne, I brought her to the screening at Sydney Film Festival. She just had a concert last week. I'm so proud of them. I care deeply about them. So our pop star, she is based in Turkey, but she travels a lot. She gives world tours, concerts, and raises awareness, gives some hope for our diaspora who are very shocked with what happened in the country, just to give them, some happiness and sings. So she's still raising a lot of awareness around what's happening through her music. Yeah. And the second part of the question, how did I find funding and distribution? So this project is, I pitched that short film that I had to Telefilm Canada. I studied in Canada. I did my master's there, and through that, they provided funding. It was micro budget, very low budget. So I traveled with Canadian film crew, and we worked with our local Afghan crew that I've established over 10 years. So one of our camera people is here, Saddam John. Hey. And so that's how I got the funding, and I got a distributor very early on, Canadian distributor. Once I had some footage to show them, I went to them. I was like, listen, this film is important to me. You have to, distribute it. So very early on I started. So I have a Canadian distributor level film. And when I went to Sheffield Documentary Festival, BBC Storyville took it. And also we just signed a world distributor, First Hand Films. So hopefully it will be available for everyone to watch the film. Yeah, thank you. Thanks to these festivals, if you don't network and, make connections, no one is going to find out about the film. So I'm thankful to every festival that I go, and it's been a year and I still go to the festivals. It's my favorite. Yeah.
Yes, can you just get the...
It's beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
How would you describe, I know it's a broad question, but the role now of pop music in Afghanistan and women's ability to sing folk songs, but also pop songs. I know it's difficult because it's millions of people, but can you say something about the status currently of women in music there?
Yeah, I think when I see what's happening in Afghanistan right now, it's totally heartbreaking. Women don't have their basic human rights. They can't go to schools. Girls are not allowed to go to school. Girls are not allowed to work. They can't even walk without a male relative. So it's a deeply, deeply now, the power is given to these misogynistic terrorist groups that don't like happiness of people. And because they didn't have any education themselves, so they're very brainwashed and they don't represent Afghan culture. So it's very hard. The first thing they did was they banned music. They said no music have to be in the country. Telo television and dozens of other televisions, people lost their jobs. The entertainment channels were shut down. Just the news channels are on, and they put a lot of restriction on women journalists to cover up on screen. And slowly they lost their jobs. Our education activists are getting arrested. One of my friends who shot the protest for me for this film is right now in prison. He's an Afghan French journalist, Murtaza Behboudi. He's still in prison, and it's been 3 months. So I don't think, Taliban, they are not a group to know humanity, and they have basically broken every single charters of rules and human rights in the UN Charter of Human Rights. And I think as a community, as UN, have a lot of leverage to hold them accountable for their crimes and, remove them from power, because it's very dangerous, not just for Afghanistan, but the whole Central Asia and also the West, because they're there to just carry on their ideological wars against the West. They're not there to progress and improve the country, not even for one bit. So that's why, because music and art and cinema has a message, it has message for people to, freedom of expression. So that's why they're against it. Things that brings joy to people. Yeah.
So Afghanistan is a fairly large country. As I know, I don't know a great deal about it, but it's a mountainous country, many remote areas, small villages, towns. Is the Taliban's reach that extensive? Are there not pockets where their oppression is not, of course, there's no place that's free the way that we experience it, but is there nowhere that is not as oppressed or touched or violated as the cities where freedom was blooming and now it's crushed? Is this countrywide, or what's the reality out in the countryside, in little villages and towns?
It is countrywide, unfortunately. I think when the U.S. left, they left trillions of dollars worth of army equipment to the hands of the Taliban, and that's why there is no way to sort of and by they have these embarrassing messaging. They just left Afghanistan, they ended it, they left drastically. The peace talks didn't happen with Afghan government. Women's voices are now, they were not heard at those peace talks. It was just a flashy event to end the war and leave the country and focus on Ukraine. And so I think the oppression is around every part of the country. There's displacements that are happening, mass killings of former soldiers, and genocide, displacing people who are resisting them right now is from the north in Afghanistan. There are some armed resistance group going on. They are the people who fought the Taliban before 9/11, but unfortunately right now they don't have material support. So no region is safe. It's all been, Afghanistan is taken as a hostage, basically right now, yeah.
I'm going to get to your question real quick, but I did want to ask, a big part in documentary now is the impact campaign. And this one's a hard one because it's a worldwide thing. It's also, how do you correct a big error when you say they've left all of this equipment and military gear already there? So what is the impact campaign for this film, if there is, or is it just about getting the message out?
I think it's more about, getting the message out, just sharing this story, this beautiful humanity of Afghan women and people who cared about, our values and democracy and, women's rights. I know Afghanistan is a very deeply patriarchal and misogynist country, but I think for the past 20 years, we had a momentum for progress and change. And, yes, there was patriarchy, the system was corrupted, and there were some, it's still an Islamic country, so there were a lot of oppressions, but there were people who were, had a chance to be out there, like first Afghan women fight from their families just to have, education and practice their careers, and then after the society, and then it gets political. So everything you do there as a woman gets political. But there was a moment to, like let's say for example, Aryana Sayeed, she doesn't wear hijab, and Sadiqa, she wears hijab. She's a very religious person and spiritual, and Zahra Al-Ham wears it halfway, like the rest of most of Afghan women. But the level of patriarchy they experience on daily basis on the same level, just because they're women and they're out there and they're singing, right? So it's a very taboo career path. So I think the impact is just to share this film and raise awareness and pressure your governments, those countries that have foreign feminist policy, to do more, because human rights movements, I think, that happen globally everywhere are interconnected. They have impact on other countries. It's not a separate narrative, so we shouldn't be silent when it comes to Afghan women's rights, and even in Iran. So we should stand in solidarity and pressure our governments to do more. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. And then
we have time for one more question.
that's it. Okay.
I think mine's just a follow-up to what you just said. I know you're not, based in the United States, but I'm wondering if there's been any support anywhere that you're aware of, either from anybody in Congress, anybody in the State Department. Has there been any interest based on people either seeing this film or other things where there's a sweet spot in the United States to sort of, for people who've just seen this film and care about these issues, to connect? So do you know if there is any place in the United States, where people are at least thinking about these issues about Afghanistan?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of community. We have big Afghan diaspora community here who are helping Afghans directly. So if you want to send help or do something politically or socially, because Afghanistan right now is facing humanitarian, political, and women's rights crisis. So if you can fit in any of those categories, reach out to Afghans. We are great storytellers. Connect with them. And they will show you the way. So, and there's a lot of organizations who send help directly, but the United States, as far as I know, they're sending millions bi-weekly, like to Taliban. They're sanctioned, but because of the AIDS, there's no transparency where these funds are going. So it's it's brutal.
Yeah.
Basirjan has one question, so I'm gonna let him speak.
Yeah.
I can solve. Amiri-jan and Fazila-jan, we will do that together. We will do this concert in the stadium of Kabul. We will do it together. You, me, and Aryana-jan. I promise everyone here, we will.
We will, if we have visionary people like him. Yeah. He was the one who was behind the concerts of Aryana. He was helping to make that happen, and he arranged a big concert for her once in Bamyan. So, good friends. And he was in a scene.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thanks for your solidarity.